So instead of making a full video talking about how Polygon had said that, in a short little snippet of like two guys talking about Final Fantasy 15 and how a video game should take 10 years to make, I decided to scrap that and make a video reviewing reviewers. And today we have IGN. IGN has been around since like the 1990s. It started off as like a small little blog of people just, talking about video games, and then it just eventually blew up to the video game journalistic YouTube channel and site that it has been known today. And it can be informative. I'm trying to think of like an actual news source that IGN reminds me of. It doesn't remind me of CNN because it's not as informed, I don't think, and doesn't report properly. But then again, most media doesn't. I would say that IGN is its own little sphere of reporting on video game news. Now, IGN is pretty good at keeping up with stories. They're pretty good at giving you information that you can digest about video games and make informed decisions on video games. The problem is whenever they have panels, whenever they have reviews, and whenever they insert their own opinions into these reviews and into these panels, that's when it gets a little bit inflated, and you can tell that there is some favoritism for some really bad games. For instance, I haven't always, because I haven't had a YouTube channel for over 6 months, but I will always talk about 2K as a great example of IGN's stupidity with their reviews. They always say that this game is like a 9, a 9.5, a 9.1, whatever. They always say that year in and year out. They've been saying that for like the past 2-3 years. And what that means to me, and they gave The Witcher 3 like a 9. They said that it was flawed. Even though it was a gem, it was perfect. They said that it was flawed. There are some bugs with it, yada, yada, yada. They patched those over. There's no bugs with it anymore. The DLC's fine. Everything's great with The Witcher 3. They gave a sports game a higher rating than The Witcher 3. And that sports game didn't win Game of the Year. So you can see how some of the reviews aren't necessarily accurate to the game. I'm sorry, I'm just readjusting myself. You can kind of see how these games that they're reviewing aren't necessarily going to be representative of what's actually happening, because The Witcher 3 in 2015, yeah, it's 2015, it got Game of the Year over NBA 2K. Like what, 16? Shouldn't have done that. 2K, according to IGN, was a better game than The Witcher 3 because of its rating. And I know that you have to rate some video games differently compared to what's going out there, but comparably, 2K was average. 2K is average. It's been average. It's been mediocre. In some cases, it's been below mediocre for the past 5 or 6 years. There hasn't really been any changes to it. There have been some graphical changes to it. But beyond that, that's really it. They changed the My Player experience a little bit with the attributes, where now you can upgrade, or now in 2K16 you upgraded everything. Like you had your 3-point shot being intertwined with your actual jump shot. So if you were a center, you could shoot threes like a mad dog if you upgraded your jump shot. But really, IGN does ridiculous practices with their reviews. One of those just happens to be 2K16. Now, IGN, I have pretty much... I've watched IGN for 5, 6, maybe 7 years of my life. I'm 19, so I've been watching it since I was 12. The reason why is that, again, they're pretty good at showing you information. But what I came to learn pretty quickly and pretty honestly is that depending on the reviewer, depends on the actual, I don't want to say quality of review, but the actual correctness of the review. It's kind of like having someone who's really bad at playing a sport go in and play in the NFL or go in and can play at the highest form of a sport. It's kind of like doing that and benching like the star of your team. It's kind of like having your worst player go in for your best player. And that's what the reviews are in IGN. If there's someone that's really bad at reviewing games or has really these opinionated little rules that they need to follow by, then you can expect the review to be either very good or very favorable to the game or very pessimistic about the game. Like The Witcher 3. I don't know who reviews these 2K games, but they're usually wrong. And it's so frustrating because as the viewer, you don't know any better. You're not supposed to know that, hey, 2K hasn't improved for the past 5 to 6 years. There hasn't been anything that really warrants you going out and buying 2K17 unless you're a diehard 2K fan who loves playing on my park and my team, but really that's it. You like if you're just a casual gamer just wanting to pick up 2K, you should just buy one of the previous editions of it and play that, and you don't have to spend $60 on it. You probably will pay $50, but still, they're lying to you. They are giving you misinformation, and I don't appreciate that very much, especially on games that they are paid to advertise for. Like for The Witcher, not The Witcher, Watch Dogs 2. There has been a shit ton of advertisement for it. For Mafia 3, there was a shit ton of advertisement for it. And I thought it was going to be a fantastic game. It was not. It was below mediocre. It was mediocre at best in some areas. And them not necessarily saying, well, it's a good game, but showing, hey, this is a game you should play, may even be worse than them actually saying that this is a good game, because you're constantly seeing it, you're constantly seeing them play it. You're thinking passively or subconsciously that, hey, this is a game that I should maybe buy because they're constantly advertising it for us. I'm trying to think of people that I actually like that review games. I can't remember their names, but really the personnel that reviews games all blend together pretty badly, because some of their opinions on games I just absolutely disagree with. I absolutely disagree with them. And it sucks because you have some people that are, I would say that most people on IGN are informed about video games. I will give them that. But the problem is that all of them have made blatant mistakes. I couldn't think of the word. I was thinking, well, careless mistakes. No, they've made blatant mistakes with video games, that with video game reviewers and panels where they discuss video games, that it's inexcusable. It's borderline blasphemous, the stuff that they get away with. It's like, well, wait a minute here. They gave what was it, Little Big Planet for the PS Vita when Greg Hardy, not Greg Hardy, it was Game Over Greggy. That's his PlayStation Network account name. When he was there, they were like, well, it's Little Big Planet that's the game of the year, not Persona 4. And everyone in the comics was blowing up the comment section. They're like, you're wrong, Little Big Planet wasn't necessarily the game of the year. And they came back a couple of months ago saying that it wasn't the game of the year, and it was Persona 4. It was in March. It was like spring break, because I remember it because I was watching it on my birthday. And Greg Hardy was one of the premier reviewers, I would say. I would say that he wasn't as annoying as some of these other people. Like, I can't stand Max Scoville at all. I mean, he's this pessimistic guy that tries to be funny and comedic through sarcasm, and it just comes out as being annoying and him being a jackass. And who's the sidekick? It was the same guy that was with Greg Miller, I think that's what his name is. Greg Miller. I don't know. He's something. It's something Spanish, his name, but he was Greg Miller's sidekick, and now he's Max Scoville's sidekick, and he seems like the guy that just agrees with everyone and doesn't have like an opinion of his own. And it's like, well, it seems like now IGN has kind of gone from like a place where you could go and get competent reviews from to now, okay, this is kind of like a TV show, because it's not necessarily that they're being critical anymore. It's that they're being just fun and caring and with some criticality to it. I think that's how you say it. And it's annoying because as someone who spent like at least the past 5 to 7 years really overanalyzing, I would say, video games. Because I just don't play video games anymore to play them. I now analyze them and how good or how bad they are. And how I like them, or how there's a quota, there's a standard that video games should reach. And IGN doesn't really take that as seriously as they should. They don't take it as, okay, we have an audience. Our audience comes in to review or to look at our games, and we're not going to be as serious as we possibly can because people are spending $60 on video games. And people don't, not every single person has that type of money to spend constantly on video games. They don't take that seriously at all. And I do. I take that pretty seriously. Because not every single person can buy an Xbox One, a PS4, and have a high-end computer and play and get the best of all three worlds. Nobody, not a lot of people can do that. And IGN takes it with a grain of salt, which is very annoying to me. I mean, whenever Flappy Bird came out, they reviewed that and they gave it a 5. But Assassin's Creed Unity, which was riddled with bugs, had a piss-poor story, had terrible gameplay, it had microtransactions in its actual gameplay, and the story was uninspired. They gave that game a 7. And that game was worse than Flappy Bird. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And they seem to just be, and I'll always use this quote, they seem to be sniffing their own farts. South Park did a really great, and this is from South Park had a really good episode about how people in LA and in California, they're very green, and because they think they're so green that they think they're so better than each other, or better than everyone else, and because they think they're so better than everyone else, they sniff their own farts because they believe their farts are like the best thing on the planet. That's IGN. IGN sniffs their own farts because they think that they're just the shit. They can do whatever they want. The only decent thing about IGN now, that's semi good, is their anime panel. I don't watch it a lot because I don't watch a lot of anime, but the reason why I say that their anime panel is really good is because it has some bearings of their roots, of kind of like the struggle and the grind that IGN had to put into their videos once upon a time, instead of them just half-assing shit and having Naomi Kyle, who's really hot, knows a lot about video games. Surprisingly, like there's this underlying theme of her knowing stuff about video games. They don't put her on reviews though. And we get people like Max fucking Scoville talking about video games. Like, I remember when he was reporting on Star Wars and how I think it was the new Star Wars, and how people had seen Ren's new lightsaber, and how it had the little, like, the blades on the hilt, and it had the actual lightsaber, or the full-on, like, sword of the lightsaber on it. People were arguing back and forth between it, and you had people who were very passionate fans of the Star Wars universe argue about it. Personally, not being a huge Star Wars fan, but just a Star Wars fan in general, I was kind of just okay with it. But he goes pretty far in saying that, you know, he doesn't see the point in people arguing over imaginary swords. Why are you here? Why? It really pisses me off. It really pisses me off when he said that, and it still pisses me off to this day, because it's like, well, obviously Star Wars is imaginary. It's not imaginary. It's fictional. It's fictional. Obviously, it's fictional. But you don't have to be that jackass. Like, he's trying to be like the cool guy. Like he's probably one of those jackasses that's like, why are people playing Pokemon Go? at the height of Pokemon Go's popularity. He's like, all these dumb nerds are playing Pokemon Go and shit like that. He's like one of those guys that just can't let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. And the weirdest thing of all is that he works for a company, because I don't think they're necessarily a news reporting broadcast station or video game news reporting broadcast station. He works for a company that reviews video games, that has blogs about video games, that talks about video games on panels, on their YouTube channel, and on their actual website. IGN has an anime channel, and it's like, well, if you can't be serious about something fictional, if you can't go in and have some passion with fictional content, how can you go in and have passion about something that's not fictional? I'm literally getting cancer from thinking about this guy and thinking about his actual fucking stupidity. And I'm gonna have to end the video soon because this could turn into an hour. I mean, this guy thinks that he's the shit, acts like the shit, and doesn't deserve an ounce of what he has. Doesn't deserve it. And the worst thing is that Max Scoville knows some stuff about video games. I will give him this. But he takes his knowledge of it and uses it as a way of being very pessimistic and sarcastic. And it's not even that his actual arguments are correct. It's not that his critiques of video games are correct. Like for the critique of the Star Wars fans arguing over a lightsaber, even that wasn't correct. It's not correct. He has information, he just doesn't use it properly, and he uses it, instead of using it as a way to inform you, he uses it as a way to demean you, and I don't like that. This has been 24. Remember to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe for more. I will try and get out another video about this specific series tomorrow, but really they're all the goddamn same thing. These reviewers, they get paid money to talk about video games in a positive outlet. And when they can't necessarily talk about video games, they can't necessarily be fully critical of video games, they're going to be like halfway critical of them, especially if these companies, they give them boatloads of money to promote these video games. When they do that especially, then they can't be as critical as they want to, because they're accepting money, they're accepting promotions, they're accepting all this crap from all of these developers and publishers, that they're like, well, okay, we can't necessarily be as critical to this specific game and to this specific company because they won't pay us. And at that point, tune off. Because they've sold you down the river.